Hello, welcome back to Evolving with Bree. And honestly, this episode is going a completely different direction than what I originally thought it was going to be. I woke up and was journaling and had reflections on YouTube recommended me maybe like a week ago or 2 weeks ago to watch like a stream, or I guess you could say a part of a stream. And out of curiosity, I did. And what I found was super interesting, and there's a few directions I want to go. But one of the thoughts that I started with is how watching streams changed my expectations in the sense that they increased my expectations and increased my, what was the word I use? Watching streams made my standards higher. And honestly, I would argue this goes for romance and friendships. I'm not really a person who was into streams. I've always loved YouTube since I was a kid, but usually that's individualistic, and I didn't really ever get into the group YouTube channels. I usually just had a person that I enjoyed, and I would watch their content. But streaming was very interesting to me, because from my understanding, it's kind of this long form collection of content and interactions. And from what I understand, people will collaborate with people. And I've always been really interested in psychology and sociology. And so with streaming and kind of being in this like fly on the wall perspective, of course you have to tie in that even in a one-on-one stream, there is sociology playing a part, because they're interacting with the people who are chatting or typing comments, and they are aware that people are watching them. So to some degree, that plays a role. And I know that there's this, even outside of the streaming world, if we talk about reality television or any form of content creation, there is some sense of influence that comes from knowing people are going to perceive what you're putting out. Whether it's subconscious and you are just completely just kind of at will of what that does to you, or if it is brought up to the conscious and maybe you're more self-aware of how you direct yourself as a result of that. But at the end of the day, I kind of left those moments of watching some of those streams concerned, to be honest. I don't remember who was the first person that was recommended, and honestly, I don't really want to get into names because I don't want the focus to be on a specific person. I want it to be on the environment as a whole. And I'm going to also acknowledge right now, you can completely disagree with me. You can have a completely different perspective. And also, I recognize that I watched maybe 3 different people's content. And from my understanding, there is a whole maybe hundreds, maybe even thousands of streamers out there. So I sure does not apply to everyone. And I also want to identify that I'm kind of focusing on the way males show up to the streaming space. And I watched at least a part of someone whose age, I think like 19, all the way to someone who I think is in their 30s and very successful in the streaming world. I didn't really watch his streams, but I watched a clip of, or a portion of the introduction to the Streamer University. And there was points and moments in that concerned me as well, but we'll get into that. So let's just start with my list and go through. I hope you guys are doing well today, by the way. And I would also love to hear your opinions on this topic. So one of the first points is that the way men would talk about women, or how quickly they dismissed women when they didn't get what they wanted. And the change in behavior when women are around. This isn't necessarily new, but it is put in our face when it's on streaming. And of course, again, I want to acknowledge that there may be some sense of performativeness. I know that, when you tie in the conversation of like the red pill narrative or commentary, how that influences, I don't know entirely how it influences, because to be honest, I don't really consume much of that media. I know it exists, and I kind of have a gist of what it's about. The concerning part is when you consider how popular trends and mindsets over time, even when I'm 26, so even when I was a kid, the things that we would see and the things that we would witness, and the adults around us are on media, entertainment media, how that influenced how we are today. I remember one of my favorite TV channels to watch every single day was 106 & Park on BET. And when I think about and reflect back on the things that I would see in those music videos, I loved music, I still do. And so to a degree, I don't want to use the word idolize, because that has become, I think the meaning of that has changed over the years and kind of has become like a toxic, unhealthy, parasocial type notion now. Whereas before, I think it could have just stood for like looking up to someone or feeling inspired by someone. So that is what I mean when I say it in this context. But yeah, you saw a lot of exploitation of women, and specifically when it comes to their physical attractiveness or their sex appeal, and how that has looked at today with the influx of OnlyFans and sexual content from a young age. Of course, I can't say we were all, but a lot of people from a young age were exposed to pornography or pornographic materials, or even like hypersexualized, narratives in movies that you would see with your family members. Like it was common to be like, have that experience as a child of being like, oh my God, there's like a sex scene happening right now and I'm watching this movie with my family. What the hell? And I'm not here to say whether participating in OnlyFans or participating in the sex industry is good or bad. That's not my argument here. I'm here just to point out the connection between what was normalized and commercialized in our youth and the effect that it has had on present day trends with young adults. Okay? Also tying in capitalism in that aspect, because if we didn't have such a strong capitalistic society where like money was seen as this, it is a necessity in our society, but also this kind of like status symbol, we may not see as big of a participation in things such as OnlyFans. But actually, that's really interesting. I want to look into other countries' participation in those type of forms of media and what demographics of people, what circumstances cause them, specifically in the countries where basic needs are met. That's really interesting. I want to look into that. I don't have that data right now. But anyways, even when we think about the trend from when, if you were my age or in my age range when we were kids, and the commentary we would hear of like, kids don't dress like kids anymore. And then there's a lot of commentary on one of the Kardashians' children. I'm trying to keep names out of it because I don't want the focus to be on particular people, but just the end result of what we're noticing and how someone can serve as an example for a vast majority of what we're seeing. Okay, I don't want the spotlight to be on a particular person. I just want to use examples that people can think of, know about, and understand the concept. I believe the girl is like 12 years old, which I didn't know. Honestly, I thought she was like 16. And the way that she dresses and the way that she acts, a lot of people want to point blame at the parents, but really, really, truly, you have to think about society as a whole, because she's not the only 12-year-old who's dressing the way she's dressing and acting the way she's acting. She's just one who has a lot of eyes on her. And my concern when it comes to specifically talking about streaming or even just content creation from a clout-chasing perspective, from a following trends perspective, is it creates this new sense of normalcy that can be detrimental to the development and the way society is transformed in the future, and how our youth approaches things, how they see things, what they think is okay. If we talk about pornography, I don't know if I can say that. If we talk about corn, that created a narrative of what was normal or what was okay in a intimate setting. And oftentimes that's not how that act looks for a lot of people. Of course, you can get into, everyone has different preferences, but there is still toxic kind of messaging that comes across that can really twist a young, impressionable mind's understanding of what something should look like or can look like between two people. And the same will go for interactions. So other examples that I thought were really interesting is the peacocking around friends and the switch up in behavior when a woman is present versus guy friends are present, which we kind of talked about. And I want to approach that from the sense of how it can be seen as a study in a way. I remember a long time ago when Streamer University was first happening, some creator was talking about how she's using it as a large sociological experiment and watching for that reason. Because honestly, it is really interesting to see how different people interact with each other. And I know I don't know even a 5% of the lore that exists in that community of people. Honestly, I didn't really want to take the time to look into all of that, but even without the lore and the backstories and knowing all the conflicts and dramas, you can see tensions arise. You can see different dynamics being present. And as a woman, and a young woman especially, I think you can use those experiences to make yourself more aware and more wise. Because prior to things just being put out online for everyone to see, you kind of had to rely on your own life experience, the experiences of your friends, or the wisdom from your elders, whether that be male elders who are looking out for you or female elders who have gone through the experience of yourself. And when I say elders, I don't mean someone who's 70 or 80. I mean someone who has significantly more years than you, even 5 years ahead of you. I still consider to be an elder. They have more wisdom. They have more experience than you have in certain areas. Of course, there's wisdom that comes from being young. I acknowledge that, especially when times are constantly changing. But with Streamer University, one of the things that was really concerning, and I don't even think it's just me being a teacher that's biased about this, but it gave me the ick that there was a conversation between two streamers who are very established in that world, and they were supposed to be the professors, and they were just openly chatting, camera on them, mics on, about if they could have intimate relations with the students. And that was extremely concerning, because it's okay, sure, everyone is of legal age, but you're supposed to be someone who's teaching them. And in any type of mentorship mentee dynamic, there is a power dynamic, an imbalance there. And to even think about, you're in a position to be helping people acquire skills, whether it's supposed to be for entertainment or not, you're still there for a reason to help people at the end of the day. So the fact that it's even crossing your mind, if you can be intimate with these people, it's kind of disgusting. And it really opened my eyes to oh wow, these are really the thoughts that people be having. And I'm not saying that this applies to all men. I'm not saying that this applies to all streamers, but it's concerning, because also you have to think about, if these are the conversations, if these are the ways that men are willing to refer to women, and talk about women that they collaborate with, women that they interact with, women that they act completely different around, in front of a camera, what type of conversations are happening when the camera's not around? When there can't be backlash publicly for the things that they're saying or the thoughts that they share. It's really nasty. It's really nasty. But yeah, goodness gracious. Again, just emphasizing that I worry about the long-term effects of what becomes normalized and the loss of the art of conversation as well. It was also so weird to me to like see people sitting together for a stream collaboration, and 80% of the time, 85, maybe even 90% of the time is spent looking at their phone because they're worried about what chat is saying. And I understand that that's an integral part of streaming, but it's like it creates this idea in your mind, for a young impressionable mind, that that's how interactions go. And there's one streamer, he's actually he's in a lot of conversation. My YouTube has been recommending me more videos since this, and so I've seen like the talking points that are going on in the streaming world, who is putting a lot of toxic things in his body, whose mindset is very much only focused on how can I get views. He's disrespectful to women from what I've seen, and then he gets confused on why he doesn't have positive interactions with women. And despite my personal opinions on things that he's said and done, from what I've learned, especially when it comes to like racist ass comments, I'm concerned for the kid because he's like 20 years old. He's a kid. And I'm not excusing the things that he said or done. Absolutely not. Because I don't care if you're 20 years old or 5 years old, you're going to still be held accountable for the things that you're doing and saying, especially when they cause harm mentally or physically to other people. But there's this like sense of complacency when I look at streamers and the people that they're surrounding themselves by. I learned this terminology, clips. And it's like people will do things so that way people clip it, and then those clips go viral, so then more people want to watch their streams. That's my assumption. But it's putting their own health in danger. It's surrounding themselves with people who don't care about their well-being, which I worry is going to create this mindset in young people that like it's okay if your friends don't actively advocate for what's best for you because y'all are having fun, right? Did our video go viral, right? And I'm worried. We already have this decreasing sense of human connection taking place. And I think that the way interactions go, from what I've seen in streaming, is contributing negatively to kind of like this this downward spiral of the loss of the art of conversation. Even outside of streaming, social media and phones in general have caused this loss of connection amongst people. And I know that there's this complete flip side where people are pushing for connection and pushing for genuine human interaction. And I'm really happy to hear that. But nonetheless, with this conversation being based on streaming, that is a concern that I noticed and had. The other thing I want to point out is, so I did look up, because I was curious, like, what is the age range of people who watch streams? And I was actually surprised to see that based on statistics, it's mostly people in, like, their 20s to, like, younger 30s. My cat just meowed. I think he's dreaming. But so that was surprising. I thought it was going to be like more teens. I don't know how accurate that statistic is, and it would surprise me if there's not a large amount of kids being teens, like high schoolers, watching streams, at least in the US. And with that being said, I think people who stream, public figures, even influencers, don't realize how much influence they have. And I want to provide an example from my own life of how the smallest interaction that to you may seem meaningless, or it may seem like it didn't even hit home, it went in one ear out the other, they didn't think about it again, could actually have made a large impact. I was working at a summer camp. I was like an administrative person, and part of my tasks was dealing with mail, both incoming and outgoing mail, as well as if a camper or a staff member, because we employed staff members that were under the age of 18 as well. So they would need like an adult chaperone. If they needed to go to like the local clinic, if there was some emergency that happened, I was kind of one of those right-hand people to make sure that happened appropriately and safely, getting them what they needed, everything like that. And there was one instance where one of the staff members who was under 18 needed to go to the clinic. And when that happens, you need another person there just for accountability, all of that stuff. It's just a procedure. And so two of them came, and this clinic visit took so freaking long. Like, everything that could have gone wrong, maybe not everything, but mostly everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And needless to say, something that should have taken maybe like an hour and a half with travel ended up taking like 5 hours. It was crazy. But as a result of being there so long, naturally, conversation happened. And one of the staff members ended up sharing something about their dad where they weren't in direct communication with their dad. It wasn't necessarily, I'm not trying to speak too much on this, just for like privacy. But basically, the circumstance that had happened, it's not like they could just call up their dad and talk to them. And they also harbored, I could tell through the way that they talked about it, they harbored some sense of anger, some sense of resentment. And me, in my experience with my parent, I had a parent pass who I didn't always have the best relationship with. And when they passed was during a period where I was choosing to not talk to them. And I don't have many regrets, but I do regret that. I regret that every day. And that influences how I advise people when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I encourage the staff member to talk to their dad, to be open if their dad tries to talk to them, to not shut their dad out. That it's still okay to have boundaries. It's still okay to protect your heart and protect yourself, because obviously I don't know the full breadth of their dynamic, but I still did encourage that, you know, when you're ready, talk to him. And then I think your future self would be happy that you did. And it kind of just ended there. Conversation moved on to other stuff. The day went on. We returned to camp, went our separate ways. And being in charge of mail, a couple weeks later, I was dealing with the mail that was going out, and that staff member, oh my God, it's making me emotional. I saw that he had written a letter, and it was addressed to go to his dad. And obviously I don't know what came out of that, but at the end of the day, a 2 or 3 minute conversation caused someone to connect back with someone that they love, that they were previously angry with. Something that I didn't know in the moment had any impact. I thought, oh, he's mad. I said what I said, but I think he's a young kid who's mad. I thought it would have maybe taken years for him to take that step, and it took a few weeks. And I guess that just exemplifies that the things that you do, the things that young people witness you do, the things that young people witness you say, especially when it comes to if you're in a mentorship type position, or if you're someone that people look up to, which these streamers, young people look up to them. These influencers, young people look up to them. YouTubers, young people look up to them. Rappers, musicians, actors, and actresses, young people look up to y'all. And I'm not trying to say like you can't live your life and make mistakes, but it's like, damn, when I'm watching people just like go out of their way to do dumbass shit, it infuriates me. Because I've seen real time. That's just one example. Being a teacher for the past 5 years, working in the space of education 2 years prior to that, and working with kids for as long as I can remember. They watch everything that you do. And when you are in the position to influence and inspire, you can either be someone who plants seeds of greatness or the beginning of their destruction. And I think that's just why I got so fired up about this. Because it's is a viral moment worth knowing that you are potentially influencing even just 1, 10, 100, 1,000 kids to make that same decision you made, knowing that it is not going to benefit them, knowing, especially if you have a large sum of money, if you have connections, they don't have that stuff. So you go do something, okay, maybe you get arrested and then you bail out and you have the access to lawyers or whatever the case may be. And I know I'm talking about an extreme sense here, but it's like they're not understanding fully the fact that the decisions that they're making are going to lead to different results for them. Yeah. I think that's really all I have to say on that. Because at that point, I would just be talking in circles and reiterating things I've already expressed. Yeah. I was going to touch on public relationships. This kind of getting more into the influencer world. And how this kind of goes back to what I've already said, but I think that we should be using publicized relationships and interactions as a starting point for gaining wisdom without having to experience it ourselves. But that becomes confusing when what I just expressed comes into play. Of one person's reality can be different from another person's reality. We've seen over the years celebrities who get in trouble for something and like the police footage releases and they're like, do you know who I am? Like blah, 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 or like special treatment being had. So it creates this false and unrealistic expectation of how that goes. So maybe I want to take that back. But I was specifically saying that we could use public relationships and things that are publicized as points for wisdom when it comes to love, or even friendship. There was I don't know if she's an influencer or a streamer. I've seen her on a stream. She's also a very young girl. She seems extremely nice. I actually feel very bad for her. She seems like a sweet girl who just wants friendship. She just wants to show people love and receive genuine love back from people. And it seems like the people in her life, from what the little instance that I saw and heard about, again, that clout chasing behavior, not actually being in someone's life because you care about them, but because of what they can offer you. It's concerning. There's a difference between networking and using people. And I think that boundary is getting blurred, and people are misunderstanding because of the way streamers collab, and because of influencer collaborations, and because of all this stuff. Like, even, bro, apparently there was Coachella, there was some girl who decorated a car with her friends and then offered to be nice and like drive the other car, and then the car with the friends that was decorated ended up earning like passes to Coachella, or like VIP passes. I don't know if it was for lifetime or not, I didn't fact check that, but basically earned a good deal. And she was like, she kind of crashed out on the internet about it. And then I guess the response from the supposed friend was that, like, oh, we're not friends anymore. It is what it is, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, fucking damn, empathy is just out the window, huh? Like, if you were really friends with someone, you couldn't empathize why they would be frustrated with that. Like, they offered to drive someone else's car to be helpful, and their car won. I would be pissed too. I don't think I would crash out on the internet about it. But it's like, it's a human reaction. And if you really were friends with that person, you couldn't at least empathize with that. Now, I don't know what unfolded behind the scenes, but it's like the lack of empathy is astounding. The lack of actually wanting the best for people around you is astounding. I don't have to be best friends with someone to be able to tell them, you're making a shitty decision right now. What you're doing is not good. If you see someone actively doing things that is putting them in a compromised position, that is causing them harm, that is leading to a cycle of negativity to continue in their life, whether that be like emotional stagnation, whether that be the potential of losing a job because you're not showing up properly, whether like whatever it can be, like bro, like, it's astounding to me how people don't turn off the damn camera and say, yo, are you good? Like, what you're doing right now, I'm worried about you. And maybe they do have those conversations off camera, and those people are just continuing to do whatever it is they want to do. But like, I am so concerned. As y'all like to say, y'all are cooked. Y'all are cooked if this is how you're going to approach relationships and connections with people and friendships and romance. If as soon as someone upsets you, you cut them off. How are you going to build relationships with people? Did you even express that was a boundary, or did you just assume that they would know? Like, communication, it goes two ways. All right, it's one thing if you express something and someone continues to do the latter, regardless of what you say. Bet, period, cut off, do what you need to do. But it's like, I think people are forgetting that being a human involves making mistakes and learning, especially at a young age. Y'all are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, even 23. Y'all are young as hell. I'm still young as hell, and I'm 26. And y'all are acting like everyone should have it together and everyone should be doing everything perfectly. I think it's unrealistic. And I think y'all need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Whether that's having tough conversations with your friends because they did something that you didn't like, or because they're doing something that's not good for them. Y'all need to get comfortable calling people out and not just quietly judging people and letting them do what they do because, well, fuck it. Also, when you see someone is struggling, like when you see someone is constantly doing something that's not good for them, the least you can do is be like, yo, I am worried about you. What you're doing, I don't think is good. I've had that conversation with a friend before. It wasn't even like it was a best friend, but we had known each other. I've had several conversations with this person about stuff like that. And honestly, it pisses me off because I feel like his friends don't talk to him about it. They just maybe it's a guy friend thing. I don't fucking know. But like, y'all just watch. I'm not saying everyone, but like, you'll watch someone participate in these negative habits, drug use, alcohol use, self-sabotaging behavior, continuing patterns that they've done for years, and you don't call them out on it. Because what? You don't want to disrupt the flow? You want to keep having fun? Okay, their life is potentially in danger because of the shit that they're doing if it goes unchecked. Honestly, at the end of the day, would you rather lose a friend because you tried to help them and they weren't ready to receive it? Or lose a friend because you did nothing and now they're no longer here? And I'm sorry to bring it to that extreme, but like realistically, sometimes it can get to that point. Whether it's because they make a bad decision and now they have to face the repercussions, or they make a bad decision and it's not one that they can take back. I don't know, man. I'm really, this shit makes me angry because I've watched people let their friends drive drunk. I've watched people let their friends consume mass amounts of drugs for like what reason? Mixing alcohol and drugs for what reason? And I have the latter of experience of like, I had a friend, a roommate in college who was, what's the word? Where they like, there's like the LED lights and like the music and like the festivals. Fuck, I don't know. And they have like the bracelets that I can't remember the name, but like in that realm of things. And so like that comes with some usage of substances, but like even with that, there's responsibility and there's like checking in, like, are you using such and such properly? Did you take the right amount? Like, did you test it? And I've also witnessed on the latter side being around a group of guys who have been friends for years, since they were fucking children, and like just making dumb decisions. And I'm just like, are y'all not thinking about the safety of this? Are y'all not worried about getting home in one piece? Are y'all not worried about, like, you're not thinking about the repercussions? It's concerning. And I really need y'all. Like, I'm not trying to be like auntie on here talking down at y'all. I'm trying to just like pour into y'all that like whoever's listening to this, speak up when you see something concerning. Because I guarantee you would rather have an uncomfortable 5-minute conversation than not have a conversation and regret it later. And if you are in a position where you can be potentially like a mentor to people, or people looking up to you, whether that's you're a teacher, you're a babysitter, you're an older sibling, you're on a sports team, and you're maybe like an upperclassman, or even in college, especially in college, actually, like, I'm not saying you have to be perfect all the time, but at least try to be cognizant of the messaging that you're putting out there, and the, hello, Cosmo. Yeah, just be cognizant, man. Just think about the impact that you're having, and stay blessed. This was a really long, but I hope y'all enjoyed and got something out of it. I would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, stay blessed, y'all. Peace. It's been evolving with Bree.